Welcome back. I'm Lex Levy, and this is Ancient Odysseys. In today's episode, I will take you with us on our expedition to the Eastern Temple of the Third Pyramid on the Giza Plateau, Menkaure, with our boots-on-the-ground footage and research. The following anomalies I will discuss in the video are the smooth or dressed red granite casings on the eastern side of the pyramid, similar to the northern entrance, the strange erosion on the inside of the temple, the concavity of the Great Court, the two pits or basins that have been filled in the center of the Great Court, the concrete-like geopolymer found in the inclined passage and the use of plaster, and the drainage hole found on the eastern face of the temple. Before I begin, here's a little bit about me. I have sold and donated all of my belongings. My beautiful home, my car. I've rehomed my two adorable French bulldogs. I was a senior chemist at a big medical device company. I gave that all up to be here in Egypt to do what I'm doing now, and I'm so grateful. Best decision I ever made. So, now you know I'm dedicated, and you can expect a lot more from me. Now, let's take a trip to the third pyramid on the Giza Plateau, Menkaure, and I will show you our route for our expedition exploring the Eastern Temple with an immersive journey using Google Earth. All right, let's go. Here is the Pyramid of Menkaure. This is the Eastern Temple. And here is the causeway that vanishes into the sand to the yet unexcavated Valley Temple, which lies to the right of Concavity, near or within the cemetery here. We first approached the pyramid on the northern face to examine the controversial project led by Mustafa Waziri to retrieve and restore the red granite casing stones. And you can watch our full expedition footage in episode 23. We then hiked to the eastern face of Menkaure, where we began at a structure referred to as the chapel, paved with red granite and encased with fine limestone. A strange wooden platform was recently erected here, and it gave me a unique vantage point. Next, we traveled through the southwestern corner of the temple, past the mud brick screen wall and portico, to the offering hall, where I analyzed the strange erosion patterns. I then walked the perimeter of the Great Court clockwise. We then entered the inclined passage, which is oddly lined with what is thought to be black granite casing, but I believe it to be a different geology. It is here too where we encountered a pavement that appears to be an ancient concrete geopolymer. To conclude our trip, we exited through the magazines and through the pillared corridor and antechamber, past where the temple is fitted to the unfinished red granite casing stones on the eastern face and at the northwestern corner of the temple. Here is a photo taken in November of 1906 of the unexcavated remains of the Menkaure Pyramid Temple, showing how it would have been as the first of the early explorers to excavate. Petrie and Howard Weiss would have found it. Howard Weiss's excavations were focused in two areas, which, being the space between the temple and the pyramid, or the chapel, and inside the main offering hall of the temple, in hope of finding an entrance into the pyramid. Weiss reported after 2 days of digging that the adytum of the temple was cleared to its rocky foundation It was 17 feet below the top of the present wall, and was stained in places with red cement, in which a pavement had been laid. But no pavement or lining, however, remained, nor were any inscriptions or sculpture visible upon the enormous blocks with which it was built, but a shallow square had been cut in the center of the western side, and a slight indication of pedestals appeared on the floor. By day 4, Vise stopped excavating, stating, "I gave up on the operation between this pyramid and the temple on the account of the great difficulty and danger attending the removal of the granite blocks, and of the little probability that existed of finding an entrance, at all events from the temple." Howard Vise's brief work on the temple tells us little, with the only other item of note being an intrusive burial. This image was taken on the 29th of December, 1906, and shows the excavation progress by Reisner's team, where the limestone paving of the temple court is exposed and tracks have been laid for carts for debris removal. According to Reisner, the large limestone blocks of the temple wall exhibited 3 irregular lines of sand erosion, and he states, but the lowest line of the erosion in the temple was not so serious as the upper 2 lines. The highest was about on a level with the 3rd course in the wall, and in the middle line was on a level with the 2nd course of the limestone blocks. He goes on to state that it was clear that the court had once been filled with sand nearly to the top of the wall, and the highest erosion had been caused by the sand drifting across the surface at this level. Then a block or 2 at each corner had been removed, and the sand drifted out, forming a new surface about on a level with the top of the 2nd course. Here, the middle line of erosion was formed, and again blocks seemed to have been removed at the corners, and the sand drifted out to the surface observed when the excavations began, the 3rd and lowest line of erosion. This theory does not sit well with me because of the degree of erosion and the strange scoop-like and cylindrical horizontal erosion patterns I witnessed, especially in the offering room, and that you will see for yourself in the following site visit footage. This excavation would expose the remains of mud brick walls which line most of the temple, and in some cases these mud brick walls were coated with plaster. Reisner would state, the white plastered crude brick walls presented a series of niches on all faces. Excavations inside the court would show evidence that granite casing of the court had started. Fragments of black granite occurred also, especially near the walls, and when the debris was entirely removed, it was seen that the heavy core walls had been partially cased with black granite blocks. It appears that the black granite casing had never been finished, but a mud brick casing had been applied, completely covering up the black granite blocks. We do not know to what extent the temple was lined with black granite blocks. This image was taken in 2013, 107 years later, and you can see the massive development on what was once the Nile floodplains. Here's a diagram of the layout of the temple with its conventional names for each division. Now, let's explore the Menkaure Pyramid Temple, and I will provide information about each division along the way.
granite casing stones, and they have scattered in the ancient time all around the exterior of the pyramid of Menkaure. Place. There's already one that I've seen, and we've seen evidence of stuff that they've already put back in place. Tell me.
What, baby?
Walk around the outside. You want to go see the temple?
Let's do it.
Careful. Here, around this way. All right, so we're going to go film for Alexa's channel for a bit. Again, if you haven't already, please go subscribe to Ancient Odysseys here on YouTube. Lots of kind of behind the scenes footage from all of our expeditions across Egypt, England, Ireland, and all across the world.
I want to be on Ancient Odysseys.
So stay tuned, we'll be back and we're going to take a journey inside the structure here in just a moment. Okay. And I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Leave some comments.
This is a structure known as the chapel. Here's an image where you can see the red granite paved floor encased by fine limestone and a pit where a stela is thought to have been erected. It may have looked similar to the Eastern chapel found at Maidum. In this image you can see clear delineation of the different geologies. Here is the fine limestone and here is the red granite. This is a reconstruction of the chapel at Maidum. And in the following excerpt from Keith Hamilton's guide on the Eastern Pyramid Temple of Menkaure, a connection is made between the chapel and rainwater collection and drainage. The dressed or smoothed red granite on the eastern face of the Menkaure pyramid, comprising a portion of the structure known as the chapel, is in the same fashion as the northern entrance, and there is an unusual polygonal-shaped stone in the center, directly above a pit. What could this be symbolizing? Could there be a hidden passageway behind this area? Could this be a covert reason for the new casing stone project at Menkaure?
extension tour. Shepsis, one of the two. All right, now we're going to see what else we can find. It's beautiful out here today.
We just walked through the unfinished southwestern corner. Here you can see the granite block, mud brick screen wall, niche decoration, and the beginning of the portico. Reisner would state that the portico and the outer offering room both bore on their floors and walls the emplacement marks of a granite casing, which had reached to the tops of the walls. The blocks of red granite with dressed surfaces found in these two rooms prove that this casing had been completely finished and was of red granite. The pillars in the portico, shown by the empty sockets, appear to have been also of red granite. A lintel block of red granite with an upper socket for a doorpost was found in the portico and probably formed the roof of the doorway between the portico and the offering room. The roofs of the two rooms were, no doubt, likewise red granite. The fine granite of the portico and the offering hall has been robbed in antiquity, with the screen wall largely removed in order to gain access. The creation of the socket holes which held the pillars suggests that the granite pillars were erected and that they were of granite, as the socket holes varied in depth, it being easier to compensate for the varying lengths of the harder granite pillar by cutting into the softer limestone to ensure the top of the pillars reach the same height for the architraves. Here's the remains of a red granite lintel block with a tubular drilled upper socket for perhaps a doorpost. Tubular drill? Here we stand facing west and into the offering hall. Strange erosion patterns here.
Take a look at the intensely eroded walls of the offering hall, which is horizontal and scoop-like or cylindrical in form. It is within this portion of the temple that the highest degree of erosion is present. But what exactly caused this? It is important to note that the offering hall is in alignment with the chapel and the raised masonry path that bisects the great court, which is conventionally believed to have directed water from rainfall into 2 pits or basins. To me, the erosion in this location appears to be from a flowing liquid and not from blowing sand.
Look at that.
And now, I will walk the perimeter of the great court clockwise. There is a raised masonry path across the court, which Reisner recorded as 1.31 meters wide, and he states, "It is of yellow limestone slabs, and is quite level from end to end, but the pavement of the court slopes from all sides toward the center, in order to facilitate the drainage of rainwater, and thus sinks into the center to a level about 10 centimeters below the level of the pathway. At the lowest point in the pavement of the court, a small drainage trench crosses the middle of the pathway from north to south and discharges on each side into a small hole in the pavement. The difference in level between the pathway and the pavement was compensated on each side by the embankment of stone slabs, which increased in width from nothing to at the 2 ends about 20 centimeters at the middle. By means of this pathway, a man might cross the wet court dry-shod. A large hole in the pavement to the north of the path may have held a basin to collect rainwater. A similar hole can be seen also to the south, which may have also held a basin. Here is an image where you can see the locations of the northern and southern basins. And you can see the intentional directed flow of fluid in the design of the temple. The great court is concave. Now, why would rainwater be directed into the center of the temple and not away from the temple? Why are 2 separate pits or basins needed for rainwater drainage?
Shukran Jazila.
Shukran, thank you, shukran. So I've never seen that before, this paving slab here.
And it's a mud brick.
So, okay, perfect example of contrast between and applications of different materials. Okay, here, this is limestone blocks. This is all, I believe, andesite. I don't think it's diorite. I think that's andesite. But this, look at how different this is. Look at this
It looks like
material.
concrete.
Looks like concrete. So work smarter, not harder. Certain materials for different applications. That doesn't look like. Look at the difference between the limestone here, and this is natural plateau limestone. All sorts of inclusions and irregularities in the material. But then you look at something like this that's very similar to what we saw on the other side, that facade piece.
Here are pictures of me on the 2nd of February, 2024, standing on the western side and highest elevation of the inclined passage. Along the passage, to the right and left, is thought to be black granite, once lined with mud brick, and thought to be done by a successor of the original builder. On the floor of the corridor is what appears to be a concrete-like geopolymer, original to the ancient construction. Here is an image showing the black granite covered with mud brick. And here is Reisner's drawing, where you can see the inclination of the corridor. Now, here's a clip from episode 10, Evidence of Geopolymer on the Giza Plateau, showing a thick plaster-like facade piece we found.
Remnants of a full stored here.
So this here is a giant facade piece. Look at, so you see the blocks behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this in the front is one piece.
Oh yeah, I see it.
There's no...
Is that all plaster?
That's kind of what I was just looking at. So again, these are blocks, limestone blocks. And this
looks artificial.
See how, okay, so see how rough
Yes.
the interior of all this looks? So this looks like natural stone. Look at how smooth that
That looks like drywall. And look how it
And look at
flakes
how,
off.
Look at how thick it is, too.
Wow. You see it flaking there? Maybe they stamped all these hieroglyphics in.
And it's a huge, thick piece. That's a facade piece. It's, you know, like, again, like you said, drywall or spackle. He took a big bunch of spackle, covered the wall up. But look how thick this is.
That's nuts.
And this color is very reminiscent to some of the other, like, coatings and this reddish color.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So they could have had a mold here. The
Just
mold
stamp it
set
right
into
in?
this thing. So I'm not an advocate of the quote-unquote geopolymer idea, where the stones themselves are artificial, but they were certainly able to make plasters and concretes and fillers. And they would have used stone when stone was better suited, and they would have used, you know, a mortar or plaster compound. That definitely looks artificial. It does
Yeah,
not
I agree,
look like real
100%.
stone. This would be a huge, you can see here, look here, where this is mortared. There's mortar here. Look at this. This is all mortar. So this whole piece was mortared into place. Unless that's sandstone, and I'm not a geologist, but that it doesn't look like the same composition as the.
It's too fine.
It's way too fine in terms of the grain. Interesting. That is very unusual.
It's like what we see in the antechamber in Menkaure.
Antechamber Menkaure, yep.
And there's another layer. It cleaves in the same way as drywall.
Also in the same, you know, looking at the inside of the pyramid of Wenise, you know how I showed you how it looks like there's a plaster coating that
Yes,
starts when you get into the chamber where all the stars and hieroglyphs are carved onto.
that's right.
It doesn't look like stone, it looks like this material.
I agree.
And I've always said that that thing was plastered on the inside. So of course, you know, Ancient Odysseys investigating anomalies of ancient sites. This is certainly an anomaly, and you can see the clear difference between stone blocks and whatever this material is. What that is, that's crazy. Because it is unlike the Egyptians to use flat pieces that are only, you know, what is that, 1.5 feet wide?
Yeah.
You don't really see that in the constructions. You see big blocks. Everything is a big block.
That's an excellent point.
This is a flat, you know, it's a 1.5 feet thick, but 10 feet wide. Very, very unusual in terms of typical construction methodology. That ain't stone.
I agree.
Now, I don't think this is modern because it continues. And here's just a really eroded piece of it. You know what?
Yeah, you're right.
لا ها اسمعني اروح اجيبه.
This is a photo of me on the 2nd of February 2024 in Magazine 20 next to the drainage hole, which is thought to be a later modification for a libation chamber. Here is an original excavation image facing north showing fragments of an alabaster statuary. It is thought that this statuary was usurped and reworked in the image of Menkaure because of the tiny face. And another image from the same excavation facing south. Here is a diagram from Reisner showing Magazine 20 and the drainage. A question to be asked is, why of all the magazines did this room require a drainage channel, and why was such a neat cutting required? The drain requirement seems to be a later modification. He goes on further stating, a rectangular libation basin for blood, water, or milk should have stood as in the temple. Directly behind this place, below the horizontal slab, a rectangular hole was cut through the northern core wall to the small covered drain which runs away below the mud brick casing wall to a point outside that wall. Thus, it is possible that the hole in the wall, in spite of its large size, was intended merely to take the spill from the libation basin in room 20.
It's a really cool picture over here.
And here is an excellent reconstruction of the temple, and what it is thought to have looked like in its full glory.
This concludes our expedition to the third pyramid on the Giza Plateau, Menkaure. But we are left with the following questions. Why is the red granite on the eastern side of the pyramid smooth dressed similar to the northern entrance? What is the cause of the strange erosion inside of the temple? Why is the Great Court concave? Why are there two pits or basins that have been filled in the center of the Great Court? Was ancient concrete found in the incline passage? Why is there a drainage hole in the northern face of the temple? And what exactly was the function of the structure? Thank you all very much for tuning in. Never stop exploring. If you want to help support our adventures, please like, share, subscribe, and pick up some badass Ancient Odysseys merch. The link is in the video description below. Also, please subscribe to our two new channels, Egyptian Trash Cats, where we document our saga in caring for the street cats of Egypt, and Egypt Eats, for all of our crazy culinary adventures. Thank you all very much.